Okay. How do we use neuroanalytic formulation to translate clinical phenomenology of patients into their brain disturbance? This is a theoretical framework where we can generate coordinates in time and space that indicate what went wrong with the optimal brain organization of the patient in order to generate symptoms. So as you can see with this slide, axis X is the location, which regards neural networks in the brain, and the y-axis is that of the time window scale in which we will formulate the disturbance. Now, we can, in general, in a very rough way, divide all mental disorders into schizophrenia psychosis group, mood and anxiety group, and personality disorders group. Now, when we are dealing with psychosis, we are dealing with delusions, hallucinations, fragmented thought process, and cognitive fragmentation and consciousness fragmentation, which occur in the millisecond range. An hallucination is an instant thing. A thought is a millisecond range phenomena. And we are dealing with a very rapid millisecond range disturbance. And this disturbance has been located to the executive network, central executive network, and it is related to disconnection dynamics in psychosis, in the fragmentation phase, and overconnectivity would be related to emergence of negative symptoms, schizophrenia, fixation, and reduced activity. In the fragmentation phase, which is the psychosis, we don't only speak about disconnection dynamics, we can also specify it more in detail, and we are actually looking at a small world network disturbance. Small world network is an optimal organization of the healthy brain, where nearby connections are dense and faraway connections are weaker. And there is a balance, optimal balance between these two that generates an optimal network. And when this is disturbed, when the cluster of coefficient is reduced, then the system becomes disintegrated and unstable, as we can see on the psychotic patient. Now, when we move to anxiety and depression, we are dealing with a different time scale and different networks. We are dealing more with a salient network, which is a network for adaptation. Adaptation meaning that the brain optimizes internal representations. The brain has internal representations of the world, and it predicts in the environment occurrences and reduces the difference between the internal representation and the external occurrences. And this is a well-known theory of optimization described by Carl Friston as Bayesian brain and free energy reduction brain, which tries to reduce the differences between the external occurrences and the internal representations. Now, this dynamics is a global network dynamic, and it has to do with adaptivity and plasticity. Plasticity means more spines and dendrites diffused in the brain. So global brain plasticity, when it is increased, it predicts and adapts well to the environment, and it reduces free energy, and it has an emergent property of antidepressant elevated mood effect. When the system does not optimize internal representations and there is an increase in free energy, then there is an a depressive effect. Now, the internal representations evolve over a lifelong time because we know today that what we call experience-dependent plasticity, it is a change that happens with experience from birth to adulthood. So we are dealing with a time window of lifelong plasticity, and we are dealing with a network which has been related to introspection and basic rest network, which is called the default mode network. So when we talk about personality disorders, we can focus our attention to the default mode network and to lifelong experiences that occur over time. So here you can see how we can take schizophrenia phenomenology, anxiety, depression, mood, and personality disorders and begin to reformulate them as etiological entities. Etiology meaning what happened and at what location in the body and in the brain, and at what time scales. So the executive network is related to the psychosis and schizophrenia. The salient network is related to anxiety and depression. And the default mode network is related to personality disorders and at different time scales. So you will not be looking to do a neuromodulation activity, therapeutic activity, if you don't know the coordinates. So in schizophrenia, you will do a millisecond intervention, and you would want to target connectivity in the millisecond range activity. While in depression, you will be interested in global plasticity and global brain dynamics of optimization. In personality disorders, you would like to concentrate on configurations of internal representations which are actually embedded in the default mode network, and they take lifelong periods, so they will probably take lifelong activity, as we find actually in psychotherapy. I hope this will give a general insight into a possible way to reformulate mental disorders as brain disorders, because in order to cure mental disorders, we have to know the etiology, we have to know the causes. Otherwise, we will not be able to cure patients.